Welcome back to Passing Time with Craig. As always, I'm your host, Craig, and today I'm joined by my old pal, Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here. This is fun.
Super excited to have you pass time with me.
And I'm a guest this time.
You were a guest.
I was kind of, what were we doing? It was like a co-hosting.
It was a co-host segment where we watched all 5 Jurassic movies that were out at that point.
So good.
Which I thank you for indulging me in.
And it was a beautiful COVID project, right? Like we were trapped at home, and it was a great thing to just.
I know. So you were on the original podcast just as that series, but now brought you on because, and I don't know how I didn't get you on originally to chat about everything, but I'm so excited. We've got so much to talk about.
Great. I hope so. I'm trying to think of I feel boring, but that's not a good way to start. So yes, I'm very interesting and exciting. Yeah.
Yes, you are very interested and excited. Yes. All of a sudden we've lost all the listeners. This guy doesn't know what's up.
Perfect.
Okay. Let's start off with, so for people who don't know you, you're a writer, director, producer, an instructor. We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
Where did your love of entertainment, movies, and TV come from? And when did you decide, oh, maybe I can do this?
Yeah. You know, I don't get that question often, but I've had it before. And it's interesting how the answer kind of changes. So it's nice to be asked it right now, just because if you'd asked me, I don't know, 10 years ago, I probably would have said something like, there's this amazing Tim Burton film called Big Fish, and it's all about storytelling. And I love stories, and I always have time for good stories. And then, I've had mentors in my life that have steered me in the direction of film and television. But I think the answer is my mom. And I mean, your journey with your mom that's helped me appreciate my relationship with my mom as well. And she doesn't know film or TV or any of that other than she's a fan.
Yeah.
But she was like, you're going to be an artist. Like, no matter what it is, she got me like a paint set, easel, and like all sorts of stuff. She didn't know what it was. I found it on my own, but she was like, you're going to be an artist. And I'm so glad, right? Like sometimes parents are like forcing you to do things you don't really want to do, but I got to have ownership over it by picking sort of what my discipline was, but I always had her support with that. So yeah, she's a big influence on that for sure, and I'm appreciative of that. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, I have had amazing mentors as well. There's a guy named Steve Ashworth who I've brought up a few times in the past. So I went to an arts high school in Edmonton called the Victoria School of the Arts now. At the time, it was called the Victoria School of Performing and Visual Arts, which was a lot more pretentious. So, but it was really just an arts high school in downtown. And there were some cool things about it, like they had a 100-person theater, and theater was a big part of that. And we had this amazing technical team that would build these incredible sets. And so it was like a little higher level for a high school when it came to like acting and theater. And that's kind of what I thought I wanted to do, was acting. But I was taking this amazing TV, it was called just TV class. And Steve Ashworth was my instructor, and many students instructor. And he was just one of those people who's a life changer, right? Like just changes your perspective on the world, and somehow, motivates you in a way that makes you want him to be proud of you.
Yeah.
Like it was just, one of those life-changing teachers. So he was a big part of it as well. So yeah. And now sort of as I don't know if I've ever uttered these words out loud, but as I enter middle age, like I'm getting to that point now, I am sort of reassessing and thinking about how short life is, how little energy I have these days, right? It becomes this finite resource, whereas I could do all-nighters all the time. And so it's becoming more about finding projects that I really, really care about. And then, I could just go on and on if you don't shut me up. So
no, go. People hear enough of my voice. Yet somehow they listen to my podcast.
Right.
They come to my trivia nights and they're like, oh, let's get more of it.
Yeah.
No, who doesn't listen? My family.
I don't believe it.
Occasionally they do. If they're on it, then they're like, oh yeah. Like it took until my one brother was on for the episode where we talked about my mom and her poems and stuff, and all my family was like, how do I listen to it? I was like, this is like the 15th episode I've released. Like, where have you guys been?
Yeah.
But there's 2 of us, so now you're going to listen. Or maybe they knew we'd talk about them. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Well, that's so cool. I love that there are high schools that focuses on the arts because it's so important.
For sure.
And I feel like too many times public schools, especially if there is money, it's going to sports.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%.
And it's not quite.
And it's funny because in the back of my mind, as I was talking about my mom, I was like, she did put me in the direction of sports a little bit too, which is great. Like I plan to do the same thing with my own children, is like taste a bunch of different things before you pick the thing that you really like. And sports was not for me, but at least I know that, right? I didn't have to like wonder, do I have hidden athletic talent? No, I don't. Great. No.
But it's important to try everything because you never know. And all of a sudden you're like, maybe you are a great singer. And then one day you decide to start playing baseball and you're like, oh, this is actually really fun. I enjoy this. So
For sure.
You never know. It's
totally.
Okay. And then you went to SAIT as well?
Yeah. So it was, so that same teacher I was talking about actually brought myself and a few other students, put us in a van and drove us to Calgary from Edmonton. And we visited the SAIT Film and Video Production Program. And at that time, it was called the Cinema, Stage, Television, and Radio Program. And I got to meet the instructors and say, okay, this is something I really want to do. And it took me 2 years to really get my act together and apply. And by that time, it had changed into what it's called now, the Film and Video Production Program. So, so I went to SAIT and fast forward a little bit, I now instruct at SAIT in the same program. And, it is a bit weird to be like, now one of my instructors who taught me is my colleague. But that's Philip Letourneau, and a lot of people know Philip in the film community. He's responsible for a lot of education for a lot of folks in our community. Yeah.
Well, the community. Let's dive into the community right now. Alberta film community.
Sure. Yeah.
It's very important, and it's super awesome. And there's so many great, talented people.
In
this province.
Yeah. I mean, I like to, people sometimes, and I'm going to sound like I'm talking myself up, but some people sort of say like, oh, everybody knows Matt. And I love that. I like, okay, great. I do have a big network and I do try to know everybody in the community, but you're absolutely right. It just doesn't, like, I'm always discovering a new company, or there's always a new person. Like, it's actually much larger than people realize. There's a lot of people working in film and television. Maybe they're not on the big multi-million-dollar sets, but they're doing things around film and television, or content creation, or TikTok, or Twitch, or like they're so, like, if you broaden it that big, especially so yeah, it's a big community for sure. No doubt.
And it's great when we get these big productions that shines a spotlight on this province, but people need to remember that it's not just the Revenant and The Last of Us and Ghostbusters. It's great for us, it's great for the economy, but all these great independent filmmakers.
Totally, yeah. It's I mean, I guess from maybe a governmental perspective, there are two buckets, and one of the buckets is Hollywood or Bollywood or some foreign entity coming to Calgary or to Alberta to create content here. Great, creating jobs and bringing in tax dollars and all that good stuff. But you're right, there is this other side of it, which is the local community, the local creator, and there are some big productions like The Heartland, of course, which is going for like 17 years now, and then there's all the way down to like smaller projects like $100,000 feature films, or little web series, all the way down to my students who are making films this summer on their own. And, I just had a conversation with a student who's like, I'm trying to make this film for, this little short film for like $2,000. And I'm hearing other filmmakers talking about how they had this nothing budget at $15K, and I'm so jealous of them. And so, it goes all the way down to people just shooting stuff for free and trying to make it happen. And all of it is good and important and valid. And it's nice that actually those government incentives haven't forgotten that side of it, because admittedly, you look at the two sides of it, and one is bringing in a lot more tax dollars and bringing a lot more jobs than the other one, but it is also our job to build a stronger community here, and a real industry of local creators too. So those are the two sides of it for sure.
Yeah. Well, and there's a great organization, the Calgary Society of Independent Filmmakers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's all these things that I don't think people are aware of.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But like, talk about your student who was like jealous. But I think one of the most successful productions are usually the ones where the people are the most passionate.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. It's, and as I said, as I get older, I start to realize I need to put more energy into things that I am passionate about and not just say yes to everything, because passion is, when you're up at 4 a.m. working on a, grant application or an edit of a film or struggling and trying to teach yourself on YouTube how to figure out this VFX thing. Passion is a big help to help you not give up when you're like, no, I really care about this.
Yes.
It's an important element without a doubt.
Well, yeah. And I'm assuming, just like everybody else, when you're starting off in a career and trying to do it, you have to kind of say yes. Like, you don't want to be the person who's shooting down ideas.
You're right.
Because you also don't know when something's going to lead to something else.
Huge point. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I'm sure you know about Kyle Edward Ball's movie, which the title is escaping me right now. It's like a found footage feature film.
Yeah.
And I know a couple of the filmmakers in Edmonton, and it's done incredibly well, like massive numbers. Like it's like Kyle his next film is going to be a multi-million-dollar film, right? It's like the dream story of like an Alberta filmmaker who made a little, movie for, I think it was $23,000 or something like that. And now it's, Patton Oswalt is introducing it in LA at a screening, and I can't wait to see what he does next. And so, it is exciting that certainly is a possibility, and it's a rare one, but it is possible. Yeah.
I'm going to make you have to go back in time here.
Skinamarink. I remember it. Sorry, Skinamarink.
Skinamarink. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
I'm going to make you go back in time right now.
Yeah.
I was on IMDb. Your first credit is you wrote and direct Tell Me a Lie.
You did your research, right?
I did. Yeah. 2009, I think it says.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
What do you remember?
So the cool thing about that was that it was you mentioned film school. So we did, back in 2006, I graduated in 2008. I had this great class of filmmakers. There's about, 28 of us, and we all came back to shoot this film. It was like the same class of students shooting this film, and we sort of jokingly called it third year, like our third year of school. It was a riot. I mean, it was so much fun, and it was scary to be like outside the umbrella of the film school and figuring out how to get equipment and asking people to volunteer, which at that time was a little less crazy. At this stage in my career, it's a little more crazy.
Yeah.
So it was like a passion project, and it was a lot of fun. Wrote it and directed it, and somebody else just brought it up today and said they saw the trailer, and I was like, oh wow. The cool thing about that is just seeing what we were capable of outside of school, outside of that umbrella, and what we were capable of on such a small budget. It is really, which is, compared to what's possible today, we didn't have drones then, right? Like there's so much more that you can do now for very little money. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people don't think about the budget when they're talking about movies or thinking about it. But budget, I've got two brothers who also work in the industry, more in TV. My one brother does all like the budgeting for all these TV shows he works on.
Awesome.
And so, it's all these little things. But when you talk budget, for those people at home who just love movies and are like, well, that's like a lot of money. No, but that budget includes everything from like food,
100%, like accommodation, and like are you flying people in from your star in from another part of the world? Every little thing. I mean, the reality is, films don't make a lot of money, right? Like we have this idea that so our general knowledge of films is Furiosa and The Fall Guy are in theaters, and they're not making nearly as much money as they're supposed to be, but they're making millions of dollars. And it's sort of, we have this concept of Hollywood being like, rich people and celebrities. And that's, of course, true, but it's probably about 2% of the actual worldwide community making films. And so outside of that, those 98% of filmmakers are often struggling independent filmmakers who are hoping to have that hit, that Skinamarink style of hit that is like a low budget movie that does really well and proves that you're capable as a filmmaker to not just make a good film, but make a profitable film, which are two very different things as well. I think that's something that people forget. I mean, I think 2009, I always think of this example. I think 2009 Avatar came out around Christmas.
Yeah.
And, love or hate Avatar, I think some people hate it, and that's fine. But I think most people are not fans, or wouldn't say that Transformers is like quality cinema, like great cinema. Yeah. Maybe it's a good popcorn movie. But Transformers was the highest grossing film of that year. And I, in my opinion, and I think fairly objectively, not a good film.
Yeah.
And Avatar, of course, became the highest grossing film, but that's because it came out right at the end of 2009. So it was not the highest grossing film of 2009. All that to say that a good film is different than a profitable and successful film because they don't care. Like, the money people don't care. And that includes Canada. That includes Canadian filmmakers. They don't care if it's good or bad. They care if, can I make my money back and more on top of it? And that's why the star system is the way it is. And that's why genre films can work, right? Like, horror films still work. And especially during DVD, had like this great little pocket of money that could be made from, like, there's a ravenous horror fandom for, and you don't need stars for that. But yeah, ultimately the money people just care about making more money, and it's a business, and that's fair. But there's another side of it too, that is just the artistic and fulfilling side of it. And so, yeah, speaking of two sides of our industry, whether it's like foreign film versus local film, there's also, profitable films or films that are trying to be profitable versus films that are about fulfilling artistic endeavors. And I think I see a lot of people talking online that it's show business and your movie's got to make money. And yeah, if you want to have like a Hollywood-esque career, of course. Yeah. But there are filmmakers who are like visual artists or who are like people in a choir. They're not trying to get famous. Yeah. They're trying to practice their art. And so there is grant funding for that sort of thing as well, or people just, bootstrap it together themselves and make it work. I don't know what your question was, but
I think, yeah. Well, it's funny that you and profitable is so interesting too, because there's such it's all a vicious like cycle. Because you have everybody going, oh, no more superhero movies, no more sequels, which I enjoy the Marvel movies.
I do too. I totally do too. Yeah,
I love watching them. They're fun. Am I going into expecting to see something like Schindler's List? No,
of course, yeah. I will say though, Star Wars, when Disney bought Star Wars, I was like, fantastic. Bring on I'll watch all the Star Wars you can produce. Yeah. And I've been proven wrong. Yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah, The Acolyte is out now, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll get to that. It's just like they have taken away the magic of it by doing so much. So there is a diminishing returns element.
But the biggest problem is that people are like, oh, there's too much of them. But everybody's still going to go see them.
It's true.
And so
they're not going to stop making.
And so then the studio goes, well, people are still coming to make them.
Money, yeah.
So it's that whole well, I don't know what to do. But at the same time, again, I like going to see them. They're fun.
Totally, yeah.
Some of them are not the greatest, but
there's I should give props to Telefilm because, pardon me, they have a program called the Telefilm Talent to Watch program, which is how I made my first feature film. And they only gave us at that time $127,000, and we had to sort of build the rest of the budget ourselves, and we were able to do that with thanks to the Alberta government and incentives and just some of our own money. But now it's $250,000, and that program it's kind of like they said, rather than giving one film maybe $4 or $5 million, let's give $250,000 to 10, 20, 30 smaller films. And I think there's merit to that, right? And I think A24 is kind of working in that vein.
Somebody that was part of somebody's acceptance speech at the Oscars.
I was about to bring this up. Yeah, it was the I should remember his name, but he got Best Writer, I think. Yeah. And he totally, I was going to bring him up. You read my mind, because it's a good idea. Like rather than dropping $10 million on one movie that might be a bomb, why don't we hedge our bets a little bit, and give more filmmakers more opportunities? And this is an old idea. If you're I'm totally blanking on his name, the producer of Get Out, and he Anyway, he's his whole theory was doing the same thing. Like I think he had a rule where it's no more than 1.5 million or something like that, and so he would make a bunch of films rather than making a $100 million film. Let's make $10 million films, or something smaller like that. And it worked out really well, and some amazing films came out of that. Blumhouse.
Oh yes, Jason Blumhouse.
That's right.
Has changed the game
totally,
mostly in horror, but really
but
just in cinema.
Yeah, which is interesting. Yeah. There was a movie called Unfriended, which had no stars, and it was prior to COVID. It was a desktop
Zoom,
film, all on Zoom or Skype or something, and it did incredibly well. I think it cost him $5 million and it made $100 million or something. And he also famously bought Paranormal. That was the movie where he $27,000 or something to make this film. And I think it still holds the record for lowest budget to highest gross ratio. But anyway, that concept is kind of dead now because of streaming. Yeah. Streaming has changed the game where if you're Stranger Things or if you're any one of these like high level or any of the Star Wars stuff, like high level series, it turns out that Netflix and Disney and Hulu and Paramount Plus and they all want to spend a lot of money because they want to outdo each other. They're battling each other for the biggest plane crash or the biggest monster or whatever it is. So it's an odd flip in the streaming world. So, but of course, it seems like streaming is unsustainable, and I don't know.
Who knows? I know. Yeah, we'll chat again in 2 years. With the next thing. Yeah. But I've been reading and hearing a lot too. Like I just saw this article. Like the Fall Guy is actually making a lot of money overseas, and it's doing well.
Okay,
but it's already on digital.
Yes,
it came out on digital like 3 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And like the same week that I went and saw it in theaters.
Right, yeah. It was weird because it did come out really quickly, and I watched it on VOD and not in theaters. And somebody was like, how did you already see it at home? And I was like, yeah, they released it. And I don't know if that was a fear-based decision because it just wasn't performing as well as it was supposed to. But yeah, kind of an odd choice. Yeah.
I've heard rumblings that Inside Out 2, which is so far the highest-grossing film of the year.
Oh, is that already out? I didn't even know that.
Just came out. Just came out
last weekend. Okay.
Last weekend.
Okay.
Highest grossing in the film. Opening weekend beat Dune 2.
Holy.
And Godzilla.
Wow.
The first movie since Barbie to make over 100 million opening weekend.
Wow.
So almost a year now.
Interesting.
And it's going on, and it's like the second or third highest grossing animated film opening ever. Like it's set all these records. But one of the other things about it is that they've said it's not going to come on streaming as quick as everything else has done.
Right.
So I think that's going to help them because this has been the issue is they release in theaters and within 2 months you can see it for free on something.
Yeah. Which sort of makes you feel cheated when you're like, oh, I just or especially you. And it's like, I went to go see it in theaters. Wait, I could have watched it at home. But isn't it interesting that we need to look at the kids movies numbers because kids movies are always safe. Like it seems like they can. And yeah, of course, because kids want to see it over and over again. So they're going to leave it in theaters as long as they can. Yeah. Interesting.
I think I had a guest on a couple weeks ago, Ryan, and we were chatting about the highest grossing film so far of the year. Yeah. I think like number 3, like Dune 2 is number 1. And then I think it's Godzilla. And then the third one I think is Kung Fu Panda 4.
Right.
So and Despicable Me 4 comes out like now or whatever.
Interesting.
These are the things that... But
yeah. It's always been the way. That's always been the way. If you look at it, like kids' movies always do really well. It's weird though because it doesn't feel like there's a ton of franchises that are ready for more. Like you bring up Despicable Me. That's a good one. I don't know how many kids. Maybe I just don't. I don't have kids, so I don't. Maybe I'm not paying enough attention. But yeah, that is interesting. I listened to I haven't finished it. I listened to some of that podcast, and you're right. That was an interesting discovery for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about not a kid movie.
Okay.
Was it your first full length feature film that you directed?
In Plainview, yeah.
In Plainview,
yeah, for sure.
Great film. Absolutely loved it.
Have you seen it?
Oh yeah, I saw it. It was so much fun.
Cool. All right.
It was just what I wanted in that type of movie.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. What was that like to make a full length feature film?
It was so fun. Like the best part of filmmaking is being on set and hanging out and having a good laugh and getting those magic moments and finding those moments that you didn't know were coming. but I have to say, the cast was incredible. The crew was incredible. I am very disappointed in a lot of what I chose to do as a director. Like, the more I think about it, the more I feel, well, and the more I learn, right? Like, it's been a while now. We shot that in 2016.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I want to shoot another one. I haven't directed anything since, anything major like that. And I would just be so much better now. But that's anything, right?
Yeah.
You write your first book and then you're like, oh, I wish I could go back. But yeah, overall it was a total blast. It was a riot, right? Like, our first day of shooting, we get to the location, and I don't know if we must have scouted it, but there's this shot that made it into the movie that is Winter is sort of sneaking down this fire escape.
Yeah. And
it's a hotel that doesn't exist anymore, the Shamrock Hotel, which has been knocked down since. In fact, a lot of locations no longer stand, which is interesting. But it's a fun shot where she's going down this, and nowhere else in the city have I ever seen anything like this. The stairs are like on a reverse pulley system, so as she goes down, the stairs sort of drop down. And I was like, oh, we have to put this in the movie. It's just like it was one of those things that came up on the first day, and it was like, oh, we're doing this. And not because it served the story, which is a good reason to do something, and not because it was like, oh, a metaphor. It was just like, that's cool, I want to do that. And that's what I love about movie. Like, and that's okay. I think it's okay to just do cool stuff and put a cool thing in your movie because it was fun and cool, and I wanted to do it. So, not to say that you don't need to have a good story and you shouldn't be thinking about those things, but yeah, it was a blast. Yeah, we're getting. We didn't actually release it. It was slow going to get it through post-production, and we finally put it out during COVID. That was when it finally went out in 2020. So, yeah, it was a fun experience.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think I watched it on Prime.
Okay, yeah. So you're right. So yeah, streaming on Prime. Right?
What did you learn about yourself as a director, but also just yourself making that film?
So I don't know if there are any Battlestar Galactica fans in the audience, but
we're gonna find out.
But we had an alumnus of Battlestar Galactica, and he was just absolutely so experienced, right? Like, having come from that show and a million other shows, he was just an absolute, like, he was a perfect like mentor for me, because he took no shit, but he also was the kindest guy. So I wasn't getting away with anything. But he was also like so helpful, and like he knew if we were on a 50 mil lens, he knew what size frame he was. That's how good he was. Like, a lot of actors don't know, oh yeah, we're on a 90 mil, and they don't know, okay, well, how much of my body is in frame for that? He was just like a total pro. And he got, he brought in a masseuse on his last day. Everybody got massages. It was fun. And we shot in that hotel, the Shamrock Hotel, after it had long been closed. And now it's been knocked down to make room for a train line, which hasn't been built yet. But it was such a fun location because everybody had their own room. Yeah. It was a hotel, so like it was a motel. So like, oh, here's the art department room, and here's the camera room, and here's the actor's dressing room, and here's Matt's ready room, and it felt like a little club vibe, not club, but like a camp, like on a camp sort of vibe. So, and it was fun because we ended up going there twice, just the way the schedule worked. We started there, and then we went to other places, and it was a 3-week shoot, and then we came back to shoot more there, which is normally not how you want to do it, but it was just the reality of people's schedules. So yeah, that was a blast for sure. It was, yeah.
It sounds like such a blast.
Yeah.
And for those listening, because you're also a producer, explain what a producer is to people.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? It's a good question. It's a common question. What I like to say is that a producer is responsible for everything on a film unless they delegate that to another person. So you hire a cinematographer because, okay, great. Now cinematography's good. And you hire a director, and you hire a writer, and you hire the craft services people, because if you don't hire those people, it's on you as the producer. So, and that's why you get some filmmakers who are like shooting for 12 hours and then they go home and are cooking the lunch for the crew the next day because, you either have so little money or just not enough help. So that's how I like to look at it. But the word producer is definitely confusing and means a lot of things. And there's a lot of different producer titles, from executive producer to associate producer to co-producer to mentor, executive producer. But if you see, and actually, if you watch a movie these days, there is a producers sort of guild or society now in the US. So if you see a CSA next to someone's name, that's supposed to mean that was the producer who actually did all the boring work, who was actually like on the ground and like having the late nights. And, like, Brad Pitt's a producer on this, but he wasn't really, understandably, he was, getting to bed at a reasonable hour. This is the producer who really. Now, unfortunately, that is eroding as well because more and more people are getting into that and are getting that little title. But that's the idea. There's that, and that term used to be called line producer, and some people still use that term. And that's the producer who is on the ground, putting out fires on set, working with the social media person for this and behind the scenes for that, and talking to the DP and explaining, no, we can't afford this, but we can do this. So and then there are producers, like especially executive producers, I would say, on most Hollywood films, who are never on set, right? Who are working from their offices and have 50 films that they're working on in various stages of development or production or post-production or marketing. It's weird. I think we need more distinction, especially as like content, like, we were talking about how more and more people are doing it here in Calgary, are making films and content is just so much more accessible. Yeah. Every business now needs a great TikTok presence or a great Instagram presence. And we're all having to become media producers. Yeah. And that is what it means. Is like, if you don't give someone the job, you're doing it yourself. So that's the best way to look at it, I think. Yeah.
It's funny you say that about like the businesses, because my buddy and I, my best friend Spencer, we'll send each other like, because we follow all these different breweries, and we'll send each other like posts that they do, and we're like, wow, that's really smart, that's clever.
Right.
And
yeah.
Or like, that's pretty crap. Like, you're gonna stand out, especially with so many breweries, right? Like, so true. I want to ask you, as a movie lover, is it easy for you to watch a movie, or do you go into do you ever get into director mode or writer mode where you either get inspired or go, oh, I wonder what I would do in this situation, or oh, that'd be a good idea for a movie or something?
Yeah, I mean, there is this book called Steal Like an Artist, and it can be a touchy subject, but I think there is this spectrum of like, oh, I'm inspired by content I'm seeing, and I'm going to remix it for myself or in my own way. And then there's a side of the spectrum that's like, well, it feels like you're just straight up stealing that idea. And now with AI, right? And I'm surprised we've got how far into it are we without talking about AI?
Wow, yeah,
good for us.
Good for us.
But that is what AI is doing, right? It's repurposing existing content, and so we don't want to go down that conversation, but it is a spectrum. Like sometimes you're inspired and you're like, oh, I have a perfect way to make this make sense for my brand or my company or my film, and other times it's like, oh, I'm just going to straight up steal that idea. And I think there's imitation is the highest form of respect, or is the phrase, or is the highest form of
flattery.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of directors who have said, I did this shot specifically because of something I saw Scorsese, Spielberg, whatever do.
Yeah, 100%. And so I think it's a weird feeling that happens when it's like, oh, they stole my idea. But I was a very competitive dude in my life, like especially sort of graduating from college. I had to sort of try to kill off this. Not that competition is bad. Competition is good, mm-hmm. But jealousy is not good. And so I had to work very hard. And actually, speaking of podcasting, we did the Alberta Filmmakers Podcast for years. We did over 100 episodes of that, and that was a great experience for me to try to kill that jealousy, and it taught me to become like a lover of other people's films and to truly admire our community and learn to not hold like jealousy in my heart, but actually like know that your success is my success, and this podcast existing is good for me and everyone who's a creative in this community. And the more of it we do, the better it is for all of us. And that's absolutely true, but it took me a while to learn it. And I just think it's that plays into that when it's like, oh, somebody stole my idea. Trying to sit there and go, okay, I'm flattered by that. Let me just take a break and be like, no, it's good. It's actually a good thing. And some people might say, well, Matt, what about copyright? And what about, my own, this is my work and they're stealing it. And sometimes it's a case by case thing. Yeah. Right? Certainly sometimes it's like, whoa, that's just, you're straight up stealing that.
Yeah. But, and then there's just, I mean, what is it? Like, there's only like 3 or 4 different types of stories.
Yeah, I think it's 7 different stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And I mean, and it's finding creative ways to showcase the story.
Right.
I mean,
for sure.
How many different love stories have we seen?
Right.
How many different war things? But,
for sure.
With In Plain View, were you into that? Like, were you into that type of movie? Like, it's a gritty. It's men on the run. Like, there's shootouts.
Yeah.
Stolen money.
Yeah, I mean, somebody recently was like, "Oh, it sort of reminded me of the Coen Brothers," and I nearly died because that was, of course, like that movie was so inspired by so many Coen Brothers movies. And there was a movie. Oh, have you seen Blue Ruin?
No.
Blue Ruin is an incredible film that was made for very little money. That is sort of a similar vibe. It's kind of it's a revenge story. And I watched it while I was casting in Plainview, and it just made me so sad because I was like, oh, I'm never going to be as good as this. And it's a similar film. But yeah, it totally is that sort of vibe. And I love, of course, I had not watched until I was prepping for this film. I had not watched Blood Simple, which was the Coen Brothers' first film. And it's incredible and such a great, and that was very inspiring to be like, oh wow, okay, cool. Look what they did without any experience, and then I mean, a ton of like No Country for Old Men, of course, was a big inspiration as well. So I love that kind of movie, of course.
So you get offered to direct your next film. Money is no object.
Whoa.
What type of script would you die for?
A heist film.
Heist, yes.
I
love a heist.
I love a heist movie.
Oh my goodness,
that is my dream right now for sure to do. And unfortunately, have you seen the episode of Rick and Morty where they totally like it sort of points out how many tropes and repetitive elements and the double cross and the double cross. And, and it's like and
then the flashback at the end to showcase what us the viewers miss.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I would love to do a original heist movie. That seems like a tall order because there are things about heist movies that are maybe they've been done a million times and I just want to do them anyway. I would love to do a heist movie. Yes, it would be a heist movie without a doubt. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
I hope people aren't bored of it, but I want to put the crew together. I want there to be the double cross. I want the
You know what? I think the thing with heist movies is there are a lot of them. They've been done so many times, but I feel like there's always enough break in between each one.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually not too many. I mean, there's probably other ones that are just like straight to Netflix. And if you go down the rabbit hole, I've got nothing else to watch. Put that on.
You know what? I was on a plane and I watched, I want to say it's called Veronica. It's a single take. Oh. It was billed as a single take heist movie. And I was like, well, if it's a heist movie, I'm definitely watching it. Turned out the heist part of it was a very small part of it that did sort of lead on to the rest of the story. But, I was like, a single take heist movie, meaning if your audience doesn't know what I mean, there are no cuts, right? Yeah. It was a European film, and it was completely a single take. And I didn't look into it. I don't think there was any like behind the scenes trickery. I think they started shooting around 3:00 in the morning, and the sun comes up during the shoot, like so in real time the sun comes up, and it was unfortunately a bit of a disappointment. But I was like, maybe that's what it needs is some kind of. I say gimmick, and I don't mean the negativity that comes with that. Gimmicks are good, right? Yeah. If it gives the audience something else to sort of, oh, I'm interested in that. Okay, cool. And yeah, I mean, have you seen Inside Man?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that felt like, oh, okay, this is a breath of fresh air in the heist genre. And I'm sure you could dive deep and be like, well, they stole that from this and that from this. But at least on the surface, I was like, oh, this feels like a different kind of heist movie. Like, especially I won't reveal the ending, but it was a very clever ending. And so, yeah, I would love to do a heist movie. Yeah. Will you be a part of it?
Oh, yes.
It sounds like you're in. Yeah.
I want to be a part of a heist. I've always tried to get people. I probably shouldn't have this out on the world in case something happens.
Right.
I would love to be.
Totally. There's actually a Canadian heist movie with Ryan Reynolds about a couple of friends who like, as a joke, they plan heists.
Yeah.
And I forget what it's called, but Ryan Reynolds is in it, and and they're like, oh, just a couple friends who, we're just joking around. We would never do this actual heist. And then this gangster says, you're doing this heist. And he holds them, you know, I don't know how he convinces them to do it, but he forces them into like executing one of their plans. It's fun, as I recall. I don't remember. It doesn't stick in my brain as much as it should, perhaps. So maybe it wasn't as good, but yeah, it's a cool idea.
That's fun. I like it. All right. So now you were shaping the minds of the youth.
Yes.
You were an instructor at state. You mentioned this earlier.
Right.
What has that been like for you? This is 2 years?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years in September that I've been instructing, and it's a blast. It makes me feel old, of course. But I try to be a cool young instructor.
Yeah. Have the chair backwards as you sit, and you do a rap.
Rap, I'm going to now. That's a great idea. It's a blast. Like I love, not that again, I don't mean to toot my own horn too much, but you are asking me about me.
Yeah.
I love helping other filmmakers. Yeah. And like I said earlier, when I shifted from that jealous person and hopefully shed that, it became like, oh, I have to help others. I have to help others make their films too. And so that's become a big part of my day to day. And now I get paid for it. So it's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, what has it been like for you to see these students and grow, and has it been exciting? Are you excited for the future?
Totally. Of course. Yeah. I mean, look, I'll be honest. It's a bit scary right now because, we're coming out of the strikes and we're hoping that things are getting better in the summer and a little bit busier. And I just want them all to have jobs to go to, right? It's scary to graduate them into a world where, we just don't have all that much production happening. And as we record this, I don't know when it comes out, but, we just heard that Jennifer Lawrence is bringing a movie to Calgary. Fantastic. We just heard about a new miniseries that is happening. So we're hoping to see more production happen. And ideally, these graduates go on to do great things. I am still new enough at it that I haven't really had that moment yet. I've spoken to other instructors who say, the best part is when you see them go to an industry and shock the world and blow people away, and you're so proud of them. And I can't wait for that. I haven't been in the game long enough really to give people the time to do that. But it's a blast. And look, I think whether you're a teacher, an instructor or not, if you can give someone a moment in life where they're like, oh, the unlock moment, the eureka moment, that's what I love about it. Like being able to say, it works like this. And they're just like, whoa, okay, great. This is now I can move forward and now I can do what I was trying to do. So that's powerful for sure.
That's super awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're a great person. I want to bring this up with people who love the entertainment and would love to be a part of it, but they don't think that they can act, or they don't want to act, or they're not writers, directors. Mm-hmm. There's so many different roles on a set, whether it's catering, whether it's wardrobe, makeup, lighting, sound. There's so much, there's an opportunity for anybody to find something in the entertainment.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's such a double-edged sword because a part of me says, we don't have a lot of work, and we have this scarcity mindset, and we've had it for a long time in Alberta. That I hope I don't mess up or show up late or do something that endangers my job in some way, because who knows if I'll get hired somewhere else if I get fired. And that's just a terrible way to live, right? Yeah. And not that we shouldn't do our best in the work that we choose to do, of course, but we also shouldn't live in fear of I'll never find another job. So what you're getting at with that question is, I think, an optimistic and realistic view. Yes, I agree that if you have the right attitude, I think you need a car in this city at least. You're on time and you have a can-do attitude. You want to learn, and you're a good communicator, and you're not you're not leaving people on red and not answering emails and not answering phone calls. Which I would think is just kind of the bare minimum of being a decent employee. I think if anyone, whether they go to film school or not, if they have all those things and they are earnestly trying, and if you want to reach out to me, it's matt@nocapcontent.com. I'd happily answer your question. I have a little PDF that I send out for people getting started. I believe, yes, absolutely, there is a way to find your way into one of these pockets or one of these roles. And maybe it's not writing on Fargo. That's really challenging. But it might be, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to think maybe doing some behind the scenes for Fargo, or creating some, that is still a tall order, but it's not impossible.
No.
And so, yeah, I actually really like that idea. It's you have to be both sides of it. You have to be, realistic about the opportunities that are available, but I also fully agree with you that it's like, you can do it. You absolutely can find your way. You have to be relentless and kind. You can't give up. But I think if somebody with all those things I listed really earnestly tries for a year, you will have 100% of those people employed in some way in the film industry.
And you said a key word too, I think, that I want to reiterate. The biggest part is being a team player. You need to be a team player.
For sure.
Don't be a douchebag. Don't show up late. Because that affects everybody and affects the bottom line.
For sure.
And now you're paying people to be there where you can't do anything.
Of course. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I think sometimes actors don't realize how much they affect, with great love and respect sometimes they're just not aware that, if you try to rearrange the schedule or if you show up an hour late, like, you could put the whole production into an hour of overtime, which is, massively expensive. And on some of the bigger productions, when there's, Sony or Warner or whoever's behind it, we feel less bad about that. But on independent productions, like at my level, that can make or break my budget when suddenly I have to pay an hour of overtime for, 100 people on a crew. That's huge. That's a huge problem. So, yeah, we rely on being on time for sure. One thing I would like to say, though, because as a producer, I have to be on sort of both sides of this argument, because I do, sort of famously, the film industry has these long hours, 12, 14-hour days. And I understand why that exists. But COVID revealed something interesting, which was suddenly, Sony and Warner and all these companies had all this extra money for COVID precautions and COVID compliance officers and COVID testing. And it does seem possible, even though I'm a producer and I'm conscious of the budget, it does seem possible that we could move to, say, an 8-hour or 9-hour or 10-hour day as opposed to a 12-hour, 14-hour day. And, I'm surprised that this hasn't, maybe it will come up in the negotiations with IATSE in the US. But people are dying. Like, people are dying driving, I've just worked 14 hours. Now I have to drive an hour home. Yeah. And, people lose their lives on, and that's a huge problem. And it's something that I don't think we talk about enough. And certainly these larger companies, I think, have the ability to, if it turns out we had some money to make it work during COVID, we probably have some money to reduce our hours and extend our days a little bit, to make it so that people can maybe put their kids to bed and have a normal life while working in the film industry. That would be nice. But the flip side of that is when you rent the jib arm and it costs $1,000 a day to rent the jib arm. Well, if I have to rent it for 2 days, if it's 8-hour days, obviously I want to shoot a longer day and get them maximize my equipment. And so, but that's every industry, right? We're constantly fighting, the capitalistic idea of like maximize every dollar and every hour versus the human side of like, let's take care of people. And so,
even, like being in the industry, like food and beverage industry right now, I think it's very interesting because normally it is all about like the customers and make sure they're comfortable. What's one of the things, especially at a brewery or a restaurant, one of the first things you do is you bring everybody water. And you pour water.
Yes.
But as someone who has cleared tables in the past, and also anybody who's ever dined out, knows that glass of water you may never touch.
Right, 90%. It seems like it's pretty full at the end.
Yeah. So we have been like trying to reduce as much as possible.
Right.
Working on Bourne, I help out there occasionally. I just started working. I had my first shift there, first time in 6 months. I was like, how do I know what I'm doing? What's my note? But we were taking any dog dishes or water glasses that weren't full, and we were going and pouring it on our plants. So
smart,
because we can't water the plants.
Right. That's nice.
But yeah, there's all these little things of like, how do we change things? What's the next step here?
I mean, I don't know about you, but it's as we deal with this water crisis in Calgary, I'm like, I've always sort of been bothered by like, oh, there's that tap that's been dripping, at Sate, not to put them on blast, but like in any of building that's, it was built in the 60s or 70s, it seems like, oh, why are the urinals always running? Yeah. Like there's always, and I don't know, maybe that water's being recycled somehow and it's not a big deal. But I do feel like there's a lot more we could be doing to save water.
Yeah.
And it's actually an amazing wake-up call for us as a city to be like, oh, we could probably be saving a ton of water just by changing some of the plumbing realities of anyway. We're not plumbing fast, but it is an interesting discussion for sure.
It's very interesting. Yeah. It's past few years we're just learning things about ourselves in this society.
Yeah. I actually haven't heard anybody sort of correlated to COVID, but I was away when it first happened, and so I got back to the city, and it was like, oh, it'll be done a couple days after I arrive, and now we've learned that it's maybe 3 to 5 weeks, and I guess yesterday maybe it's a little shorter than that, so it's hard to know.
But, well, I mean, you were away, so I don't know if you saw Crack Max Calgary posted day 1 or it must have been day 2, I think, of like aisles empty of all water.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, I didn't see that.
Just the toilet paper situation again. And like, it was a lot of places and it was the people in Bodess who were actually on a boil of water enterprise actually needed that water.
The people who actually needed it
couldn't get it.
Yeah, right. It's wild. Yeah.
It's super
and I mean, it's so funny. It's like, oh, we got to reduce water. Well, some people hear that and say, oh, I better fill my bathtub and use as much water as I can because and I get that. I mean, that's a scary thing to think, okay, maybe the water's not going to come out of the tap, but yeah, I don't know. We have a mistrust of government, I think, which is fair in a lot of ways, in many ways. But anyway, let's not go down. I'm not going to go down like anti-vaxxers and like some of it's fair and some of it's confusing and weird. But
yes, there's definitely some confusion there.
Yeah.
All right, as we start to wind up, I want to first ask you, because we first met when I was working at Gummy Boutique, the candy store.
Oh, whoa! I totally forgot about that.
That was like. Very long time.
That was a long time
I don't
ago,
even know
like
how long.
15-ish years.
Yeah, it was a very long time.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. Wow. So, what is your movie snack of choice?
Oh, I think I've got to hand it to my fiance, who introduced me to the idea of M&M's in popcorn.
Okay, everybody seems to be on this.
Is that a common thing?
Now.
Oh, okay.
It's great. Never tried it, but
I neither had I. And she just we were dating, and one day she just poured it in there without asking me, and she looked at me like, "You got a problem with that?" And I sort of fell in love with her at that moment. But also, that's my movie snack too. Is
nice. Nice.
Yeah. What about you?
I think I usually go with some sort of gummies.
Okay.
So I love those Jolly Rancher gummies that they came out with. Because I love Jolly Ranchers. Yeah. The best flavored candy, but
for sure,
hard candy's a bitch.
Yeah.
Break my teeth. Yeah. So then they came out with these gummies, and they're so good.
Nice.
I can't do sour candy. I can do sour candies, but I'm like that 5-year-old who just eats them all, and all of a sudden my taste buds are
me too.
messed up.
For sure.
And then nibs. I love nibs.
Oh yeah, nibs are great.
Nibs are great.
Yeah. I was not a licorice fan for a long time, and I still hate black licorice. I have very common tastes. I guess I'm not, but I do love snacks. In fact, at one point I was like, my Instagram. I think I'm going to make my Instagram sort of like I'm going to review snacks and stuff like that. I didn't really do that, but I do try to. So Gummy Boutique is a cool place to get something a little less common. In Edmonton, there's a place called YYC Exotic, or YY. What is it? YEG Exotic, and they have a whole ton of stuff that I hadn't seen before. And I was just in the UK, but I will give you this as like a hipster. My favorite chocolate bar is a Fast Break bar, a Reese Fast Break bar, which you can't really get.
Yeah,
and even the import places seem to only have it some of the time. I do love it. It's great. Yeah.
Have you checked out Trust Convenience?
I have once. It's pretty far away from me.
There's a new one.
Is there a new one?
Okay. Opened up. I think I want to say like Westbrook-ish area, so a little bit not as extreme north as it is, but
right. But I made the pilgrimage, and it was fantastic. Yeah, the problem is everything's so expensive.
I know.
I just can't and it's like, okay, I could pay $4 for this can of pop that I could get for $1 elsewhere, but it's slightly different than every other. Yeah,
it's slightly different. All right, final question. I asked this to everybody.
Okay.
What's awesome? Tell me something awesome.
Ooh, I kind of want to say The Last of Us is awesome.
Yeah.
And it feels like, okay, we're kind of like, it's played out now, but like, I love the video game. I love that they came and shot in Calgary for the first season. I love the show. I love the lore around it. I love there's this amazing documentary. They've made 2 of these documentaries about the making of each game.
Oh, really?
And it's very cool and interesting and insightful to see like how they do the motion capture and how the actors are doing the scenes and it's incredibly powerful and emotional and but they're wearing these like motion capture suits and there's also what's awesome is I always have room in my heart for a good story and and just both of those games are just excellent stories and the show is excellent and I was kind of late to it but I guess they're making a third one it sounds like so yeah, hopefully there's lots of TV and stuff. A little bit more prescient is House of the Dragon is amazing. I don't know. Are you watching House of the Dragon?
I'm not.
No, all right. Well,
I'm excited because I get craving it because my best friend got crave for House of Dragon, so I get to watch Crave again.
Nice. Well, again, I don't know when this comes out, but Sunday was the first episode back in season 2, and I will watch the episode and then I will consume 2 to 3 hours of podcast content around. Wow. Which is like, it doesn't feel like, am I a psycho fan for doing that? I guess I am, but I find it so interesting. The book content is interesting. And to be honest with you, there's so much about Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon that, gets left out in the show. And so hearing from book readers fills things in a great, it's like, oh, that's why that happened. Interesting. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm loving it. I'm excited about that.
I mean, I do that with the Marvel movies because I never read the comics.
Okay.
I know stuff.
For sure.
As soon as I finish watching the Marvel movie or TV show, I just go on the interweb and just learn everything I can because I find it so fascinating.
For sure.
Like, oh, that's why they did that. Oh, that's why they did this.
Yeah.
So, no, I get that.
I too did not do a lot of comic book reading, but I got into it right when the Civil War storyline happened in Marvel, which was so fun because it was like all these different comic books. Everybody was doing it. Every comic book had like the Civil War banner on it because it was this massive multi-title event. And then they did it in the movie. So that was interesting.
Well, I thank you again for being here today.
Are you kidding? This was a blast.
This is so much fun.
I just love talking.
That's why you're an instructor.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
No, it was super fun to learn stuff from you, talk to you about everything.
Yeah. And we said it off camera, off mic, but we have to do another Jurassic Park.
We did originally, and they're still on YouTube. You can go and listen to the original 5 movies. We got to do one for Dominion, and then they're now filming the new.
There's a series, right?
There's the cartoon. The show,
cartoon series,
actually really well done.
Is it good?
Really
good. Okay.
And then they're filming a new Jurassic movie. They just started filming.
Oh, I didn't even know.
It is. They're being unsure of what they're kind of phrasing it as, but it sounds like it should take place after the last movies. But it's a standalone story. Scarlett Johansson, Jonathan Bailey.
How did I not hear about this? This is crazy.
But what's cool about it is the writer is the original writer of the first Jurassic Park movie and the Lost World Jurassic Park.
Whoa, amazing. So that's cool.
Took Michael Crichton's book and made that movie and made the sequel. So he's back to write this.
That's cool.
I don't know. They're keeping everything hush-hush, but I'm super stoked about it. So they're just starting.
Sounds promising.
Stuff. Yeah.
Sounds promising.
So we've got so much more we can look forward to. Thank you for talking about Alberta film scenes with me.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
In plain view. Search that up, people.
And thank you for shining a light with this podcast on so many amazing creatives. And I was just listening to an episode, and you've had so many people I know and love and admire, and I just appreciate you for doing this and taking the time to shine a light on the whole creative community in Calgary. It's very nice.
It's a great scene here.
It is.
There's so many talented, amazing people.
So true.
And whether you're in Calgary or not, where you can find stuff online, again, content creators, YouTube, movies, everything like that.
Totally,
Thank you, Matt.
Of course, thank you.
And thank you all for passing time with me. We'll chat soon. Bye.